Welcome back to Crimealize. Please subscribe to this channel and please click like. Thank you. Today I am dissecting the chilling, deeply complex case of Jade Janks. Jade was born on October 14, 1983, and she grew up in the San Diego, California area. Her biological father, Steve, owned a successful construction company. When Jade was quite young, her parents separated and she was primarily raised by her father. Her parents eventually finalized their divorce in 1995. Following the split, her mother married a man named Thomas Merriman, who went by the name Tom. Tom and Jade's mother had an incredibly rocky, volatile relationship. In fact, they filed for divorce 3 separate times. The first time in the year 2002, the second time in the year 2006, and again in the year 2008. It was only after that third attempt that their divorce was successfully finalized. Interestingly, Jade did not have a close relationship with Tom during her childhood. It wasn't until she turned 18, when they lived in the same residence for a period of time, that they actually formed a bond. Jade graduated high school, she went to college, and maintained a variety of professional roles, including working as a project engineer and a sales consultant. For a long time, Jade worked directly for her biological father's construction business. However, in 2018, she branched out to start her own independent interior design company. Her business was wildly successful, and she quickly built a net worth of several $million. In her marketing materials, Jade promised to remodel, refurbish, or restyle spaces to make them functional and fabulous. She even posed for a marketing photo holding a sign that read, "Avoid costly mistakes." Based on how the story turns out, Jade would have been well served to follow her own professional advice. In April of 2020, Jade happened to move into a residence directly across the street from Tom Merriman in Solana Beach, California, about half an hour north of San Diego. This geographic proximity gave her a chance to regularly reconnect with her former stepfather, seeing him about once a week. At this point in his life, Tom was running a local butterfly farm. Tom was also severely struggling with an addiction to alcohol and prescription medications. In December of 2020, the 64-year-old Tom was admitted to a medical facility to be treated for heart problems. While he was hospitalized, Jade spoke with him on the phone every single day and occasionally went over to clean his apartment to help him out. Although she actually had a lot of money, she was a millionaire, but still, she seems like she herself cleaned the apartment. Although she would have had enough money to have somebody else do that. During one of those routine cleaning visits, she accidentally bumped into Tom's desktop computer. The movement woke the monitor up, and it turned out that no password was required to access the system. As the screen illuminated, Jade immediately noticed an explicit image of female breasts. Staring closer, she suffered a wave of absolute horror as she recognized the naked body on the screen was her own body. Sickened, Jade began digging through the hard drive and uncovered hundreds of stolen, non-consensual, naked photographs of herself. These images spanned various sources. Many were private photos she had taken years prior when she was with a former boyfriend. Some of these deeply intimate pictures dated all the way back to when Jade was just a vulnerable teenager. To make the betrayal even more monstrous, Tom had actually set one of these explicit photos of his own stepdaughter as the main wallpaper for his desktop screen. Jade was so profoundly traumatized and repulsed by the discovery that she later testified she felt like she could no longer physically bear to touch her own skin. Jade had trusted Tom implicitly as a father figure, and Tom had spent years secretly violating her privacy by mining old laptops, SD cards, and digital cameras to steal her private photos. The timeline now moves directly to the crime. Consumed by a long-lasting rage, Jade immediately formulated a calculated plan to murder Tom upon his release from the hospital. Jade contacted a stranger named Alan, whom she believed worked in private security and whom the state would later characterize as a criminal fixer. Jade arranged for this fixer to meet her at the residence when she brought Tom home. On New Year's Eve, which is December 31 of the year 2020, roughly 1 week after the horrifying computer discovery, Jade picked Tom up from the medical facility. However, the fixer failed to show up as scheduled. Rather than aborting the mission, Jade decided to execute the plan entirely on her own. Within just a few hours of arriving home, Jade gave Tom an excessive lethal dose of prescription drugs, specifically Ambien. As her stepfather lay dying, waking up intermittently, Jade sent a flurry of highly incriminating text messages to her friends. She literally memorialized her own crime in real time, texting phrases like, "I dosed the hell out of him," and "he's waking up," and things like, "I can't carry him alone," and "I can't keep a kicking body in my trunk." Also, she texted, "He's very aware now, and I'm about to club him on the head." Desperate for assistance, Jade contacted a friend named Adam. Jade eventually confessed to Adam that Jade had given Tom a massive quantity of drugs and that Jade had choked Tom and suffocated him with a plastic bag. Jade begged Adam to help her move Tom's body back into his own bed so it would appear as though he simply suffered an accidental overdose in his sleep. Adam flatly refused to participate purely because he wanted no part in a murder, and he immediately reported Jade to the police. By the time the police arrived at her residence at 4:30 p.m. on New Year's Day, Jade had already dragged Tom's body out to the driveway. And completely concealed it under a massive pile of garbage to buy herself time. Other officers pulled Jade over in a vehicle shortly after and placed her under arrest, prompting her to ominously mutter that she was in for a long night. At 7 in the morning, the following morning, investigators officially uncovered Tom's body hidden beneath the trash. At her trial, which took place at the end of the year 2022, Jade took the stand to offer a vastly different defense. She claimed that Tom had consumed his prescription pills and whiskey entirely on his own while sitting in her vehicle on the drive home. She argued that he became so heavily intoxicated and groggy that he fell down twice while she tried to help him out of her SUV, scraping his head. She testified that because he was too heavy to move, she drove him back to the hospital, but the doors were locked due to COVID-19 restrictions. Consequently, she simply left him to sleep it off overnight in her Toyota 4Runner. That's what she said. While he was unconscious in her vehicle, she admitted she went inside, poured whiskey on his computer, and removed what she believed was the hard drive to destroy the stolen photos. The next morning, she found him dead. Terrified that she would be blamed since she was the one who picked him up and destroyed his computer, she panicked. She admitted to piling garbage over his body out of sheer helplessness and fear rather than malicious attempt to permanently dump his remains. The prosecution countered her story directly. While the medical examiner confirmed Tom technically died of an Ambien overdose, the state argued Jade actively forced the drugs, choked him, and placed a bag over his head. Her defense insisted the text messages were just a terrible, panicked choice of words taken entirely out of context. But on December 21, 2022, the jury rejected her explanation and found Jade Janks guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Now, let's move directly into my psychological analysis of this tragic and disturbing case. Here are the key areas that stand out. First, we must acknowledge that the psychological trauma of the discovery, which Jade had, and that is, Jade had every single right to be profoundly upset by what she saw and found on Tom's computer. The state struggled to humanize Tom during the trial because in reality, Tom's behavior was nothing less than monstrous. Tom chose to betray his stepdaughter in one of the most violating, deeply creepy ways imaginable. He maintained a normal parental relationship with her by day while secretly obsessing over non-consensual explicit images of her by night. This was an illegal predatory boundary violation that completely shattered Jade's reality in a single second. Her positive view of him instantly evaporated, and Jade was forced into a state of severe cognitive confusion, which ultimately gave way to a single-minded purpose of homicide. From Jade's perspective, the intense mental agony and revulsion could only be cured by permanently eliminating the source of her pain. Second, this extreme level of disgust fostered a dangerous psychological state of moral entitlement. Jade genuinely believed she was morally justified in killing Tom. This intense sense of entitlement is the exact reason she made so many incredibly clumsy, irrational errors. Because Jade's own disgust was so overwhelming, Jade automatically assumed the rest of the world would look at the situation and completely empathize with her actions. Jade subconsciously believed that anyone who read her text messages would take her side, and validate the murder and excuse the poisoning. Her entitlement blinded her to the reality of the legal system, causing Jade to underestimate Tom's physical weight and completely overestimate her own ability to get away with a sloppy crime. Ironically, if she had never sent those digital text messages and possessed the physical strength to move his body to the bed as planned, Jade very likely would have escaped the consequences of her homicidal behavior entirely. Finally, we must look at the legal threshold of premeditation versus a crime of passion. If Jade had discovered those images and immediately lashed out or killed Tom in a blind heat of passion right then and there, the criminal justice system would have treated Jade drastically differently. Jade likely would have faced a far lesser charge like involuntary manslaughter. However, Jade stayed actively angry for an entire 7 days. During that week, Jade premeditated every step. Jade reached out to a fixer. Jade sent incriminating text messages. Jade went to a local store to deliberately purchase body disposal items like red cord and black plastic gloves. And Jade kept a tarp and a knife by her bed. While she claimed the tarp was for self-defense, the tarp offers no protective benefit. It is strictly a tool for body disposal in this context. Ultimately, Jade haphazardly murdered Tom. What Jade had set up was a haphazard plot which was heavily tied to poor emotional regulation rather than a highly strategic calculation, but it undeniably crossed the legal threshold into cold first-degree premeditated murder. Tom's actions were predatory and monstrous, but the law is absolute. No matter how horribly a person violates your baseline boundaries, you do not possess the legal authority to take a human life. Offense is an entirely personal experience, and it cannot grant a license to commit murder. Those are my analytical thoughts on the case of Jade Janks. But now the final verdict belongs entirely to you, my viewers. I want you to head directly over to this channel's community tab, which is the post section where I post photos and articles for you. I want you to head over there right now, and I want you to cast your official vote on our live image poll, which I have set up there for you. Once you select either guilty or not guilty on the poll, drop down into the comments section below. As well, guilty or not guilty, the comment section below this video also. Write in there guilty or not guilty. And type your verdict out in all capital letters, either guilty or not guilty, and lay out your exact psychological reasoning for your verdict, because I'd like to read your reasoning as well. Do you believe a week of trauma justifies a crime of passion? Or was this a cold, calculated murder? That's my question to you. Please give me an answer in the comments below to that question. Let's get a dialogue going in the comments below. Thank you for watching Crimealize. Until next time.